totally inadequate for the community. MacTech, the private company doing the work on behalf of CTS, is now erasing critical material facts from the site history. If you want to see the community's full statement regarding the cancer cluster study and our demand that it be retracted, reviewed, and reassessed, go to cleanasheville.info. The Rice family. The Rice family has been impacted tremendously in this debacle that has been led by local, state, and federal officials. Larry Rice Sr. has had his brain entered 6 different times. He has 3 shunts in his brain. He has an inoperable tumor. His wife has thyroid cancer. One son, Larry Jr., has a brain tumor. Larry Jr.'s children, all of them, have cognitive and physical stunting. His other granddaughter, 31 years old, Devon, has had 12 spinal taps to alleviate the pressure that builds on her brain. She has literally had to have her eye removed and shaved so that it doesn't come out due to the pressure. She has had 4 shunts in her head. The Robinson family, across the street, number 10, Concord Road. Shannon Robinson has had 2 premature children. She has had multiple surgeries to remove cysts throughout her body. Her children have developed immune deficiencies. Shannon had a radical hysterectomy at the age of 23. Currently, she is being treated for cysts that are growing on her bones where her ovaries should be. There is nothing confusing about cleaning up a toxic waste site. The only thing that has been made to be complicated is the lack of answers, the lack of honesty, and quite frankly, the lack of integrity with EPA Region 4 and NCDENR in particular. We have now uncovered exactly why it happened, when it happened, and who's been protected. And by doing that, who are the people that have been harmed? As I said, we have close to 80 documented cases of cancer within a mile and a half of that plant, 49 cases of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. What we are calling for is an NPL designation, National Priority List designation for the CTS of Asheville Superfund site. We are calling for soil excavation and treatment as the basis for the cleanup. We are now calling for a barrier-based defense for the migrating groundwater leaving the contamination site. We are calling for municipal water to be delivered into the affected areas, not the areas that have only tested for trichloroethylene in the water, but those that are in harm's way. We should not have to wait until we are impacted before we have safe water. We are calling for a congressional investigation and a criminal investigation into EPA Region 4's handling of the CTS site in Asheville. We're calling for the State Attorney General, Roy Cooper, to lead an investigation into NCDENR and the Division of Water Quality's handling of the CTS Mills Gap Road Associate site. We are calling for a cease and desist order to end all MacTech activities on CTS of Asheville site. This includes the Mills Gap Road contamination site. We are calling for a complete redaction of the Mills Gap Road contamination Superfund site listed as 273 Mills Gap Road to clear the Rice family name, and we're also going to be asking for just compensation to the Rices and the Robinsons. And we've been here on this show repeatedly, and we've talked about what we thought and where this was going to be leading. We now have discovered it. In 1980, EPA had a discovery for a Superfund site located at the CTS of Asheville site. In that paperwork, Norman Lewis, who was the hazardous waste coordinator, described exactly what levels of waste they were generating. They were generating approximately 105,000 pounds per year of sludge waste, solvent waste, and organic chemical waste per year. This is from 1980 to 1987. So we're closing in on 1 million pounds of highly toxic waste. Those compounds include trichloroethylene, tetrachloroethylene, dichloroethylene, benzene compounds, petroleum hydrocarbons, number 2, methyl naphthalene, as well as hexavalent chromium and cyanide. That's just a partial list. Now, some of the documents that we found recently include the Law Environmental Site Screening. This was done by CTS before they sold the property to local developers, Mills Gap Road Associates. They were comprised of Stanley Greenberg, John Powell, and Fred Schlossman. This was done in 1987 as a way of providing some peace of mind to the buyers. CTS said that they didn't feel like they had any hazardous waste on their site. Mills Gap took their word for it because the site screening that Law Environmental did was started a month after the sale of that property was concluded. In every single test that they sampled for TCE, they hit it. Despite the fact that they delayed, Law Environmental delayed their sampling of the volatile organic compounds on an average of 13 to 15 days. They sampled the metals almost instantly. But for the volatiles, they decided that they would hold on to them between 13 and 15 days. And despite that, they still had TCE in every hit, including 53,000 parts per billion right here at PAC4. Now, what's important is that CTS, as they were closing down their operations here and selling the property to Mills Gap Road Associates, they decided to lease out part of the property, part of the building, to some former employees to continue plating work. Those employees also were purchasing for $28,000 the equipment. Those employees failed to submit a hazardous waste inventory for 1987. This caused EPA to come on site to begin the process of screening the property. EPA will partner with NUS in 1989 to screen the property. We have never seen the 1989 screening. We do have the 1990 screening. The 1990 screening is referred to as Phase 2 because of what they found with Phase 1. Phase 1 justified further study to see, quote unquote, the extent of the migration of the contaminants. Now, I want you to know something very important. Buncombe County was called in 1987 by David Ogren. David Ogren made a call, and we know it's 1990 because he says that the property was about to be sold or had just been sold, and he was concerned that the contaminated areas on the site might not be cleaned up. He referred to an old chemical pond behind the plant. He was worried that his neighbors, the Rices, might have their health impacted because the Rices had said that they were having health problems ever since they started drinking a well that they had established. He literally said the well was contaminated. This was in 1987. The reason we know that's because he described the date. Pat DeRosa from NCDENR files a self-memo on June 18, 1990, 3 years after Ogren called. Now, Ogren had called Denise Ballou with County Health. He got bumped up to a woman named Robin Purcell. Robin Purcell called Pat DeRosa.